I am doing great and thrilled to be here.
Excellent. We are so happy you're here. And thank you for your support of this inaugural Festival of the Diaspora. Please give them a hand to one of our big sponsors. Thank you so much. So, Lucie Claire, you are the president of the Andean cluster that involves about 4 countries, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
4 very different countries.
Very different
countries. You're also an executive team of a Fortune 100 company.
Correct.
I am dying to know your personal story. How did you get from where you started to where you are?
Okay, well, thank you very much first for the warm introduction. And before starting, I would like to thank the Festival of the Diaspora for creating this wonderful space, the advisory board for making this happen, and obviously Cordell for being the founder of this wonderful initiative to be here. Also, I would like to thank everybody here. Buenos días a todos, queridos boricuas, for those that are from Puerto Rico. For me, I am thrilled to be here in the Isla del Encanto because this is where I started my international career several years ago. So Puerto Rico is very close to my heart. I have great panas and memories in this country, and I am thrilled to be back here. And well, my career is a result of diversity. I think that I am an example of diversity in the sense that I have always been a very curious person, always avid to learn new things. I have always thought that the world is a very big place to stay just in one location, and that has translated in me having an experience and a professional life that is a combination of countries, culture, and languages. And I have been very fortunate to basically do business in the consumer products industry. That's my big background. For many, many years, I have done business basically in every continent in the world. And I have had the opportunity to live in beautiful places like Puerto Rico, like Mexico. I was born and raised and educated in Mexico. I did my bachelor in marketing and I made my MBA there in the Instituto Tecnológico and the Estudios Superiores de Monterrey. And then I continued doing more studies, executive studies in Stanford University Graduate School of Business. And to keep up with everything that is happening with digital, well, I ended up in Cornell University. So a little bit of all of that. And then I had the opportunity to live in beautiful places, as I was saying, Puerto Rico, Mexico, Chile, the Philippines, New York. And now I am the president of the Andean cluster, which brings me to 4 amazing countries, which is Colombia, where I am living right now, but I am also living Ecuador, Peru, and Venezuela. And how did I end up here? Well, how did I end up in Philip Morris International? And I have to tell you, you know, when I have been fortunate to have a very successful career in, as I said, in the CPG industry. And when they knocked to my door, the first thing that I thought is, well, I am having such a wonderful career in a CPG, and the tobacco industry is calling me. And when that happens, it's like you say, It's like when you change jobs and when you join a company or a job, you always think about the positives. You always think about the great things that can be achieved by a corporation and the job and the role that you have there. And I said, well, you know that the tobacco company is has a lot of stigma, a lot of backlash. So I said, but what is it that why I would have to join? And what is it for me? So as I started talking to the company, I just realized the daunting task and the challenge that the company has put in terms of transforming the industry, on changing the whole company and stop selling cigarettes. Stop selling cigarettes. It's like, just think about a minute. It's the most successful international cigarette company that has been for more than 100 years selling cigarettes, and that they have had the most iconic and popular brands and very profitable, and suddenly they are telling me, well, we're going to stop selling cigarettes. It's like if I tell you we have a company that produces beverage and we say we stop selling beverages. which is what we are all about, right? So, and I said, wow, this is really something, right? And then I started looking at it from my personal life, because I come from a family where my father was a smoker all his life. He was never able to quit smoking, and I was personally a smoker before. And I was lucky to be able to stop smoking. Today I don't smoke anymore. But I know that, like my father or me, there are billions of people that are smokers. If we look at the World Health Organization, the Global Tobacco Trends Report from last year, there are 1.3 billion smokers around the world. And when we compare that statistic to the one that was done in 2015, was 1.32 billion. So there was just a decline of 2%. And I said, well, what about all of these people? These people have the right to know that there are better alternatives in terms of opportunity than continuous smoking, that there are less harmful alternatives than continuous smoking. And I would have been very glad to have that technology when my father was alive. So that's what made me think, well, I may be joining Philip Morris because there is a vision, there is a clear why, there is an important purpose, and is how we can bring something better for the adult smokers who would otherwise continue to smoke to have a better choice. So that's why I ended up being president of the Andean cluster of Philip Morris.
There's a whole lot there, but you said a couple things that really stood out for me. One was transformation. And what came to mind is, number one, most people don't understand that Philip Morris International is not a U.S. company. They hear the name, and there's an automatic association, just as myself.
Yes.
And I'm like, okay. So distinguish Philip Morris International, that's number one, and then please talk about this transformation you're on. A former cigarette company that's no longer selling cigarettes. What do you do then?
Exactly. It's like, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Yes, no, absolutely. Well, yes, absolutely. And thank you for the question, because I think it's great to clarify. Yes, Philip Morris International operates in every market around the world, in 90 markets, except the United States. So it's an international company. Historically, it has been a very male-oriented industry, which is one part of the transformation. And I am proof of that, because now we are seeing more senior women being part of the leadership in the company.
I'm sorry, can we applaud that? I'm a girl dad. Thank you. Looking out for my baby. Who's going to take care of me when I'm old, okay?
Yes, we need to have more space for us, for our girls, for our daughters and granddaughters. And that's for sure, because they are going to be the future generations. So no, definitely it has been a very male-oriented industry, and recently that has been part of the transformation. So one is inclusion and diversity, and that's the part of belonging and the Festival of Diaspora. That's the main message, but also the transformation in the sense that the company decided to start investing in technology and science and research more than 15 years ago to find a better alternative than continuous smoking. Everybody knows that smoking is not good. And if you ask me being an employee of Philip Morris International, the first thing that I tell you is, if you don't smoke, don't start. If you smoke, quit. But if you cannot quit, or you are not willing to quit, then change. Then change to something that is better. And that's the technology that we're talking about. And if you give me the luxury to explain a little bit, because it's not easy to understand. So the company started, as I said, 15 years ago to invest in research and development, and we have been investing in this period of time more than $9 billion in this technology of smoke-free products. We have had a lot of independent research. And basically, we count with more than 900 scientists and engineers in the company. We have 2 centers of excellence, one in Singapore and the other one in Neuchâtel, Switzerland. And these scientific and engineer experts that work day and night on these technologies, they have very different backgrounds and expertise. And when we started talking about the transformation, really what the company did was to stop and start decomposing and deconstructing all what the products were and the paradigms and the processes and the company, and said, how are we going to do this change? What is the thing that is more harmful for the consumer of a cigarette? And the most harmful ingredient to the consumer, it's really not the nicotine. Because people think that the nicotine is the most harmful ingredient. But it's not that. It's the smoke. It's the smoke, but because when you light up a cigarette, you produce combustion. It creates fire. And that fire creates a smoke. And the smoke, which is what we inhale to have the experience of cigarette, is what brings a lot of harmful and potentially harmful chemicals into your body. The technology that Philip Morris has developed is an electronic device that has a little tube like a pen that is called a holder, where you insert a tobacco unit. It's not a cigarette. It looks like similar like a cigarette, but it's not a cigarette. It's a tobacco unit that you insert in it, and through a conduction, like connecting a blade that it has inside, it hits the tobacco, but it doesn't burn it. So the fact that it doesn't get to the combustion, the temperature that it reaches is much lower than what you get with a lighter, right? And with that is you create vape, like a vapor, like steam. And the steam, what allows you to do is to experience the flavor of the cigarette, but without the harmful chemicals. And that's what is a much better alternative than continuous smoking. And and the people that completely convert to this, they really see the results. But that's important. They have to be completely converted and not alternating between cigarettes and the technology of the heated tobacco system, which is called IQOS.
Right. So I understand the technological change, but you also had to do some organizational change.
Yes.
And I read, I forget the certifying organization, but it said that you all had been certified for equal pay amongst men and women. Moreover, 20% of your leadership team are women. You're in 90 countries. Tell me how that happens. And across 90 countries, not including the US.
Well, with a lot of hard work and a lot of open mind and a lot of commitment from the senior management, from the top all the way across the organization. Yes, we are one of the employers of choice. We were the first multinational company that got certified equal salary certification by a non-for-profit equal salary foundation based in the UK. We did that back in 2019. And we have been having to do audits through Pricewaterhouse every single year to maintain that certification. And right now we are doing it again in March. And and for me, that's a fundamental. I have always thought that any woman and any man have to be paid equally for equal job. We shouldn't have a difference in payment. We are talking about capabilities, intellect, and what we do in a job. And not for being a woman, we should be paid less. So that's what is exciting about what Philip Morris is doing, because we are in more than 90 countries around the world. And no matter where you go, no matter which function, no matter if it's marketing, finance, manufacturing, R&D, doesn't matter which communications, legal, everybody, if it's the same job, men and women get the same pay. That's the first one. The second one is that we are also in the Bloomberg Gender Equality Index, right? That's the second one, and this is the second consecutive year that we are there, and we are very proud because it shows all the progress that we have been doing, because it was a male industry. So, and the percentage that you mentioned is the one that is from the gender index. Is not the Philip Morris one. The 20%, it improved from 17.9% in 2019 to 20%, well, 19.9% last year. In our case, just to make it as a point of reference, at Philip Morris, 39.2% of leadership roles are held by women around the world. And in the case of the Andean cluster, because I have to tell you I am very proud of that, is among the women in the Andean cluster, 48% have managerial roles. And if I split it by country, in the case of Colombia, we have 46%, in Ecuador, 55%, in Peru, we still have a job to do, we have 16%, and in Venezuela, 100%. Tell me, where do you see 100% of leadership being done by women?
Obviously in the Andean coast.
Exactly. Exactly. So I think that it definitely shows our commitment. And I think that I would like also to quote our Chief Diversity Officer, because we have a Chief Diversity Officer who was appointed in 2020 and reports directly to the CEO. So it's not like you don't see many companies that you have that role reporting to the CEO, but she always say that we have to have a visible and palpable change. We don't want to tick the box. So definitely it's a lot of inclusion and diversity that it's driving this change. That's why we are an employer of choice. And honestly, women, we are at the forefront and center in this transformation. Now we are seeing that we have scientists, we have lawyers, we have communicators, we have economists, we have engineers, we have plant managers that are women, and like myself, and that we are driving this transformation to create a smoke-free future with this new technology, and hopefully convince and make more people that are adult smokers that otherwise would continue smoking to choose a better choice for them.
So, as you know, I lead the Aspen Institute Project on Belonging, and most of the audience for that work are executives like yourself, people really wrestling with how do we define belonging and thriving across multiple markets. And I just can't get this idea of 90 markets out of my head because you don't include the US market, you don't even service it. And so what are the ties that bind these 90 very diverse markets together? How are you all have been able to do all of it? I know hard work, but I'm trying to get tactical. Like what is it you're saying to people as they approach? What was the pitch to you to come, leave what you were doing, to come work for Philip Morris International, and then for you to see the proof points? Like, okay, you guys really mean what you say. What does that mean practically?